I find that...
No, did you just
Why
move
do I
again?
find that hard? No, I don't. No, you go over there.
Okay, well that'll do.
Well, I'm not entirely sure. I'm not... I don't, I don't know what side to
That'll
stand.
do, just...
All right, that feels better.
Yeah.
You want me to get closer?
Well, there we go. Now, that feels just right. I think we're standing on a ley line.
A ley line?
I think so.
A ley line. Ley line.
Here we are in Fish Creek at your current art exhibition. And we are in the Oberon Room in the Fish Creek pub. So you have Yvette Stubbs.
That's
Yvette
me.
Stubbs. So you have decided to call this exhibition, well, you work towards it, and it's called the Oberon exhibition, and it's in the Oberon Room. Please speak.
Well, you might call it the Oberon exhibition. It's actually called Metamorphosis. Metamorphosis, because as I was going, I was making a metamorphosis of my life and of my painting. And having chooks and having a cat to look after, where I'm staying, a cat that's incredibly demanding called Tiger Lily. So I thought that all my paintings were going to have her and me in them. And I was starting to morph into a chook and a cat. But luckily I didn't, they're not all that like that, but a lot of them are.
Fantastic.
So the metamorphosis. So initially I started with paintings, these weren't the initial paintings, because my initial paintings were over there, we can show you later. But the ones after that were these. These pieces are the cats and me, morphing into a cat. I wasn't entirely sure which one I was, because this cat sleeps on me at night and she meows and will sit on my lap all the time. And I've got scratch marks all over me from her getting on me. But that's enough of Tiger Lily, isn't it, really?
Yes, well, that is enough of Tiger Lily. I prefer we can see Tiger Lily on the walls. So you've been, have you been in throes of a mad art thing? Have you been staying up all night painting and not sleeping and eating or anything? Do you do that kind of thing, or you're rather well balanced?
I'm really incredibly well adjusted, actually, when it comes to things. I don't stay up all night, and I do eat, but I'm doing an artist in residency in Dumbulk at the moment. And
what's that involve?
Well, I just stay there and I do lots of art. That's basically what I do. I'm there to do my art, and so that's what I'm doing. And
right, so nobody's paying you to be an artist in residence?
No.
God, marvellous! You've taken that role on.
I've taken that role on. I don't have to pay anyone for for me to do it, and they're not going to pay me either, which is a bit of a nuisance. But it gives me time to get out of all my other problems and get into my art.
Good. Well, you don't have too many, and you're actually house sitting, aren't you?
Well, yeah.
So you're in a totally new environment, and it's like you've been thrown into the deep end, or perhaps pulled out of the deep end and thrown into the shallows. I don't know.
Well, I don't know. It is an incredible dive into an area that you don't know.
No, new people. You didn't know anyone.
And you just, and also with all of this lockdowns and things, there's a lot of time being on my own. But it's good. I really genuinely have got into doing a lot of art, and my art has developed through that.
Okay, so Metamorphosis. So did you have a plan in mind? Did you intend to form an entire exhibition, or what?
Yeah, look, I did. I went there with the intention of painting. That was it. I wanted to do lots and lots of painting, which is what I've done. But the Oberon Room came about because I came up to this exhibition, to an exhibition here, and I went, see if I can book the room. And there was one available, August, September. So then all of my new art is now in this exhibition, and I've got another 2 exhibitions that I'm working on as well.
Let's start with the cats. Now, I quite like this little cat here. Tell me about this cat.
Well, the idea with the reason this one's called Metamorphosis, it's a metamorphosis. So it's the cat and the human morphing into each other. And you'll notice that the cat's got human eyes and a human nose. The human has the opposite. You see?
Yeah, that is so.
And the person's also getting a bit of fur hair on it.
Oh, that's rather good. Is that the first in the series?
That'll stay as the first. I thought I'd continue on that vein, but it didn't work that way.
Oh,
I thought I'd also do bigger pieces like that, but that didn't work that way. I do a few pieces of something, and then that's the end of that. But that was the only one I made of the Metamorphosis, exactly like that.
This next one with the human eyes are back.
Yeah, that's exactly what the cat's like. She just sort of wants me to be hers, and that's how that worked.
I like that one. That's cosy. I love the way the tip of its tail is just tickling the side of your nose. It's very warm and friendly.
Yeah, she loves me. She doesn't love everyone.
Oh, I must say, I love this bold orange cat. This is a real super cat, I reckon.
Yeah, I like the fact I call it the mouse stash. I thought that was, very, very witty of me. And look at her quizzical look. She's not a happy cat most of the time. That's her look. It's like, I'm the boss.
She just knows what's what.
She knows what's what. She's smart. She's good.
And you've moved in nicely.
She's accepted me from not letting me to go to bed at all initially. Yeah, she was snarling at me and trying to scratch me to actually sleeping with me now.
That's happened several times in my life too.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about a cat.
Now, this is a pretty interesting one, I must say.
Yeah, that's just a little piece I don't want to talk about, really. That's just
Well,
one I put in as an extra to put on the wall because there's nothing in that corner.
Well, it just is, and it's good anyway. I like it. It's a nice little mood. Now, this is a pretty special-looking cat, and I must say you have phosed or metamorphosed into an entirely different creature altogether, Yvette.
Yeah, look, these came about once I'd booked the Oberon Room, and I was thinking I did 4 pieces to do with Midsummer Night's Dream. And this one was the cat's cradle, or what do you mean this is the wrong mask? So that idea that someone says, make sure you wear a mask, but she's theatrical. Theatrical people don't know what mask you're talking about. And that piece took me a long time to resolve. Really is the hardest one out of the 4 of these pieces.
Well, I like it. It's good. It's a beauty. I really do like it.
Well, these are also part of the metamorphosis, the blending of human with an animal. For me, we're all equal. And that sense of being, if I'm looking after something, I'm looking after it fully. And I'm looking after chooks, and the chooks are coming through in these pieces, if you notice. They all have the theme of the Midsummer Night's Dream. Oberon, Puck, and Titania, child of mine.
I'm not familiar with the Midsummer Night's Dream, except for Puck.
Oh, well, I think it is. That'll be your homework.
Yeah.
But
Well, they're all part of the fairyland. Oberon's the king of the fairies, king of fairyland, and
right.
the rest just follows on, right?
Titania's someone like that
Yeah,
too.
okay, no
and
worries.
Puck
No
is
problems.
something like
Yeah,
that.
the little bloke, he runs mad in the forest.
That's right. And I thought you knew nothing about Midsummer Night's Dream. I managed to drag that out here, didn't I?
Fantastic. Well, you've done the chooks justice, and I'm sure you've looked after them famously. Really, animals and birds are pretty good company, aren't they?
They are.
Pray tell me, this one is having a little weep.
You know, there's misery in life. Poor old Puck. He had a hard time. Yeah, I'm also part of all of these pieces, so all of me is in all of these, and a tear.
Partial to the odd tear myself.
Oh. Sad. I was experimenting with the idea of feathers being leaves and being feathers. So if you see in all of these pieces, the hair is leaves really, but could be feathers. And if you look at the feathers, they could be feathers, but they're really leaves. And who knows? There's a combination. It's that idea of the environment and everything morphing. That's it.
Well, that's perfectly right, because that's all of these parts of nature are reflected like that, aren't they?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think it shows in all of these pieces, especially I think Oberon.
The lovely colours, I think, in that one. I really like the mauves and the burnt oranges, you know, the lovely earthy tones. It's got a nice feel, that.
I think it's a gentle, loving, motherly piece. So she's mothering that animal.
Yes, and that's a very tender, warm, reciprocating little creature too.
I really enjoy playing with Oberon because I've made the leaves, the feathers from the tail go all up into the hair, and then the hair coming back down to the bird. It's the joy of painting.
It's a lovely flow.
A lovely flow.
It's a lovely flow.
It's a lovely flow. So they're all like that. My niece, Natalie, I sent this photo to her when I was making it, and she said, "Auntie Yvette, you have to make it more colourful." So that's why this piece is a little bit different than the others. It's got a bit of a punchy colour for my niece, Natalie.
Right, now this one was on the floor before. We've just put it up on the table. Speak to me about this one. I like this one very much.
Yes, it's 122 centimetres by 122 centimetres, one of my biggest pieces. I don't tend to make big pieces. This is a triptych, meaning it's been made in 3 parts, just because it's easier to transport. It's my latest piece. I'm just completing it. I think it's almost complete. It hasn't been glazed. I think the idea of birds being free, and you'll see the leaf theme is coming through again, the leaves for hair. And it's taken me months to resolve this work. This has been a really hard yakka. And the 3 chooks that I look after are in there, and there's some sort of eagle that's landed in her hair, and really they're looking at her and saying, "Are you still there? Could you take off the mask?" And she's not happy. She's like, "Oh, well, this is the way it is." But all the birds are free, and she isn't.
That's a mask too, that's a pretty good statement for the current times, isn't it? Yeah. And like we're all tolerating that. But I do like the gold in the bird too, and I like them. Everyone's got a little bit of sadness in them, but sure, look a bit damn there's some new pellets today. I like it. It's nice and warm. I like it.
Well, I think realistically all they do is look for food, but symbolically we're looking at the symbolism of the piece, and the symbolism is the freedom of the birds. But in actual fact, they would really be going, "Don't you think it's feed time? Can I have some pellets?"
I like it. Yes, I like it. And I do. I like those chooks too. They're funky chooks. That one in the middle looks like it might have a bit of age on it. But the one down in the bottom right-hand corner is a very pert and smart-looking chook.
Colour can be really hard to get right, and you've got to keep working unless you want it to jar on the eye, but I don't. I like my works to be sort of flowing and look like no work's been put into them. They're just the way they are. But that pink is not a normal colour I'd put in behind the colours all those colours are a little bit different than what I would normally use. It was an interesting journey, and even the white feathers, if you look at those, normally I would do those and then put more into them, but I think I'm going to leave them like that because I like that juxtaposition of the 2 colours and the difference, the cartoonishness and then the realism. I like working in surrealism, but I can put a bit of realism in that, sort of slightly realism, the chooks, I would think.
And you said it hasn't been glazed. Now, I don't know anything about painting. What, you put a lacquer coat over it to protect it, is that what you do?
Yes. Yeah, you have to glaze it.
Does that mean that'll come up shiny, or no, it'll be matte?
Well, it depends on. You can put shiny matte. I put a satin glaze, if you must know, or half matte, half gloss, because I quite like it. It also can highlight paint, so the work can be highlighted by the glaze as well.
So that when you've glazed it, it will have a different appearance then?
Just a touch. It will change it a little bit.
It's beautiful. I love the pink through that. It's a nice one. I don't care that you're wearing a mask, Yvette. So long as it's not me.
She didn't start with the mask. I've got photos of the journey I went on to make that painting, and it was a long journey, and she started as just a face with lovely flowing hair, lots of very light colours, and she's worked her way to this.
Well, that's fine, because when all this COVID stuff's over, well, she can become a Bedouin.
She can be a Bedouin. Well, she's going to be in an exhibition at Laurie Collins at the Red Tree Gallery in October, so I'll be having a solo retrospective there. And she will be my current work, and they'll be working back towards my earlier works. So it should be an interesting exhibition.
Well, good. I might attend on my flying carpet and just keep up with the mood then.
I certainly expect you to.
Now, this one here looks a bit Bedouin-y.
This is the artwork made from the collage, and I just love the image and I love experimenting with it. So I've got a few pieces that I've drawn. This one is the one I like the best, I think, and it's forever masked, because sometimes we feel like we're just always going to have to wear a mask. And if you're going to wear a mask, why not look beautiful while you're doing it?
Well, I can't actually even see the mask. Now, this one's pretty disturbing, you know. I can't quite work this out. At first I thought it had a giant clown's nose on it. Now, I know you don't have one of those.
It's not a giant clown's nose. It's a creative mask with a frond at the top. What do you think it is?
Is that what it is? Okay.
That's absolutely what it is. Well, that's what I'm going to tell you it is anyway.
Now, this one's like a dear little purple dream catcher.
It is. It's one of the works I do when I'm sitting down. They're nature prints. So you get leaves and you print them down. My idea, again, is trying to do a similar work, but working out all kinds of varieties of ways of doing it. So I paint a background, I put a print on the top, I go over the top of it. Each one's unique.
Well, I like them. They're nice. They're very nice. They're very peaceful. I particularly like that egg-shaped one at the end.
You're talking about Three Birds and a Yolk?
Yes.
And I like the title, Three Birds and a Yolk.
You've got some poems to match these.
Yeah, there were 22 poets who wrote to only 7 artworks that I posted, and The Earth Speaks was one of the very favourite pieces that people wrote to. It spoke to them. And I was really, really excited about it, but it meant that I had to display them. So I have 22 poets who are part of my exhibition, and I'm very happy to have them with me. And it makes me very excited to read the poems to people as they come along and look at the paintings.
And you've done some of that, have you, here?
I have, yes. I've got all the pieces on the walls of all of the poets' pieces because they're exhibiting with me.
But I think you'd perhaps better read that poem, had you?
I could read that poem. This poem is by John McGeoch from Scotland, by the way. The earth sleeps. The earth sleeps, but not for long. With man at the reins, it's all going wrong. Going, going, gone is the ancient song, and woe betide in the waking. Well, that was pretty good, wasn't it? This is a poem by Barry Sargent. I feel your soft breath as you peruse my curvatures, warm to my texture, sensual in your gentleness, so alive and fertile, soft on my skin, the breeze of life on fertile soil.
Now, I didn't know what to make of this one, which is why I sort of walked around it, but it looks like an upside-down budgie on the left side there.
Well, you see, it doesn't really need to look like anything, okay? It's in the eye of the beholder. Everybody looks at it and gives it another idea. So if you look at it, it's called Fishy Creek. You have a fish, which is basically, if you need to make an image, is a goldfish. We had lots of fish when we were kids growing up.
That's a gorgeous fish on the right, that orangey thing. Right, so that's about the place, Fish Creek. It's got octopus tentacles, it's got fins. It's a very fishy piece indeed.
It is. And so when we were kids growing up, we had birds and we had fish, we had animals, and my dad's paintings all had birds in them, and I try not to put birds in things, but they seem to come up.
That's a ripper bird in the middle left, by the way, with its mad flapping scarlet and burnt orange tipped wings. It's a corker.
Yeah. In an exhibition I'll be doing next year, it's going to be called Palette Pieces. So what I do often is use a canvas as my palette. So I put all my paint on there and I paint from it. And then what am I going to do with the paint? I can't afford to waste paint. So I make a painting out of the palette piece. And that's a palette piece.
Ah,
So
right.
I'm going to have a full exhibition full of palette pieces.
Right.
Next year.
Well, at first I thought you said pellet piece, and I thought, now, What does she mean by palette piece? We're going back to the chooks here.
Maybe I should have said an artist's palette piece. Chooks, yeah, no. Yeah.
Yes, so now I wondered whether we were going to be talking about birds today, because birds is a big theme for you, and as you've told me before, it was your dad, Doug Stubbs, he painted a lot of birds too, and it's sort of part of who you have been, isn't it?
Well, daily. Dad was an incredibly industrious painter, and he painted on a daily basis and would have an exhibition every year. So often in the lounge room, that would be his studio, and we'd all be sitting there watching television and around him, and he would paint. And
he'd paint right in the middle of the lounge.
Absolutely. If we were in a small house, and the last house we were in, definitely tiny house, and often we'd go to bed and he'd be the one who'd be up all night painting. So that was his favourite time. All the kids weren't bothering him, and he could paint. So my vision of painting was birds, always just emerging on the canvas. So Dad would have a big white board. It wasn't canvas, it was masonite. He'd paint it with white, and then he would just build the painting on top of that. And I've got to say, a lot of his techniques I've taken on, I think. And birds just come out, and I don't know why, but I think it must be the early influence.
Now, while you were, he was there slapping painting around on canvases in the lounge room, what was he like then? Was he a jolly dad while he was there painting away, surrounded by kids?
He was calm. So when Dad was painting, there was no emotion because he was focused. So he'd paint, and then he'd go and he'd lie down and look, because he had a crook back. He'd lie down and look at the painting, and he'd look at it. He'd get back up again and paint, and have a little stool there, and he'd do some painting. He'd go back down and lie down. So basically, having Dad, you just always had that comfort of knowing he was there. So he's a very, very calm dad when he was painting, and he was very funny and jolly and took us places, and he was a great dad. Great.
Would he have done things like take you to the tip for a Sunday afternoon or a Saturday arvo? Did you have tip outings?
I've got to admit we did.
Oh.
Yeah, those were the days you could go walking through the tip, collecting stuff. We did used to go to the tip. I guess those were the days before they had pickups.
I'm a bit jealous of families that went to the tip together, but maybe it was just because my mum grew up in Sydney, and I don't think she would have allowed a trip to the tip as a family outing, but I reckon we kids would have loved it. I mean, she did end up wading around in cow shit, she became a farmer's wife. That's how, and we were allowed to run around in cow shit and bare feet too, Anyway, tip trip, would have been good.
We seriously wore shoes. I don't imagine going to the tip without shoes on. But in cow shit with no shoes on doesn't really appeal to me.
Oh, magic.
But when we were living in the city, Dad used to take us to the galleries and to the parks and all of those places. So it was, it depends on the area we lived in as to what we did with Dad.
Yeah.
We went to the beach. He took us to the beach all the time. Loved it, swimming. With no shoes on.
Now, what about that fabulous sun over on the right? What's the go there?
Those three pieces are the first pieces I painted when I was on my own. And the middle one is called Screaming in Pieces. Now, Screaming in Pieces was titled by my son, and the middle one was the first one I painted, the one on the left was the second, and the one on the right was the last. And my son tells me he thinks it looks like strength and fire, and the other one on the left is emerging, but the one in the middle, Screaming in Pieces, I thought was a great title.
Yes, well, it does. I could look at that and think, well, there's a nutcase.
This is called Screaming in Pieces by Wendy Sellings, written to this painting. Hiding in the shadowy sky, the crows are circling on the fly, lurking, waiting for their share, eyes aglow behind her hair, lurking, waiting for a serve of her bubble and her verve, all so certain they're deserving of maybe just another serving of what remains of her bleeding heart, pecking with a poisoned dart. Screaming in pieces, she FALLS, apart. Screaming in Pieces by Ivana Dash. She spoke in tongues with full abandon, yet it was her eyes that wove the truth. And here's another piece by Vicky Thornton, and that's Screaming in Pieces as well. Screaming in Pieces, the books got it wrong. Every fairy tale, a contorted twisting resembling no truth ever reached. No princess ever waited patiently for her knight in tarnished armour. None meekly bowed to wizened crones and realm rules, primping and preening in the hopes of being noticed. Instead, every girl fought the patriarchal prison that ensnared them in a toxic, tulle-draped belief, readied for battle, screaming into the night.
Yeah, but I like the one on the right. I reckon that's a vibrant little piece of work. That, and the colours are lovely and strong and bold, and there's fire and sparks, and it's got a good life. It's like you metamorphosing, flying out like the beautiful phoenix. Form.
Now that's what I should be calling it, Beautiful Phoenix. That's a really good title. Those three pieces I wasn't going to exhibit. They were the pieces that sort of got me going in this exhibition. And you'll notice that there's quite a lot of angst in those, and then the other pieces start to relax. So they needed a wall of their own. But they are very important pieces, I think, and I'm happy that my son encouraged me to exhibit them.
Put a really high price on them and they'll walk out the door.
That's a really good plan. I might get you to be my manager, Christine.
Because your prices are very affordable, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
They range between what, 100 and how much?
They range from $50 up to $450. But the puck, the Midsummer Night Dream, my mouth's not working. The Midsummer Night's Dream pieces are all $450, but the others are a bit cheaper.
Well, I think they're cheap at half the price, you know. I don't really know what that
Well,
saying means. It doesn't sound like it'd be worth it to you, does it?
Maybe $225 then. Cheap at half the price. Yeah, never thought that saying made any sense.
What have we got here?
Look, I always start series and I think, I'm going to carry on with this and the whole exhibition will be like this, and I'll be bigger ones and there'll be smaller ones and there'll be a variety of this. No, that doesn't happen. I have done 4 of the Posy series. They started their life initially as a vase of flowers, and I think a vase of flowers is all very well and good and a lot of fun, but really boring for me. So then they metamorphed into birds' heads, and I then was really enjoying doing this first one, the Posy, Only the Lonely, and I thought, how can I do a variety of these? So I made yellow one and a white one and a green one, and that was the series of the Posy paintings.
You used this first orange one as a stamp, didn't you? Well, that's not what you'd call it.
I do come from a printmaking background, so what I did with this is I put too much paint on this first piece, the Posy, and I thought, well, I don't want to waste paint, I'll just press it onto another canvas. So I pressed it onto the next canvas, and then there was still too much paint, I pressed it again, so each one will have a little bit less paint, therefore the vase will be a little bit less. This is the Garland by Paula, and she's written to this piece. Nature collected, arranged artistically. So many colours vibrant, aesthetics matter, you see. Each petal a woman's vagina, peeking through the green, designed as a garland for male pleasure to be seen. A garland of distress, misguided desire to admire, a still alive picture, adulation of male desire. Now you see, poets saw different things in my pieces to what I saw. I did not even contemplate.
Well, there we are, a still life.
So there you go.
There you go.
Yeah, that's the beauty of poetry.
Speaking of still life, before I came here today, I thought I'd like to come as a piece of art. And if I were to come as an artwork, I couldn't very well come as a still life. Anyway, I did have trouble with the wardrobe department, so I just came as a piece of moving life.
I've got to say, though, you mightn't come as a piece of art, but you've certainly come as a piece of work.
Well, I know, and I think we have already established that we are both pieces of work, aren't we?
We are, and that they're our favourite people. Anyone out there who are pieces of work, I'd like to friend them. Yeah, I think so. I think they're good people, pieces of work. This is a poem to Puck, this painting here, by Jenny Ivins. Green the tears that drip from my eyes, green the bird that hides in disguise, blue the feelings that make my eyes well, blue-eyed the bird whose truth can't dispel. What lies on my lips that tremble and shine, its orange beak heart is as broken as mine. Pretty good, wasn't it?
I better read my own poem, hadn't I? That was to this one here, which you called Oberon. Oberon is over on the other side, among the wattles where the doolagar and bunyips hide. He flutters through the leaves where bunjil grieves. The noble bear is always there. You too can see him if you dare. The noble bear, of course, being another name for Oberon, King of the Fairies.
Titania Child of Mine, written by Letitia Stubbs. And it's by my sister, so I've got to read it. And I like it, of course. I like it. Oh, my bird of paradise, smiling up at me, with your smooth yet sharp beak, not once have you ever pecked me or squawked at me. Your kind eyes fill me with light as you enrich my soul. My internal need to fly to freedom reaches deep within. O spirited one, I hold you gently as you help me leave the roots of my embedded hair follicles behind. Now, that's a very funny last line, isn't it? Here's one by Barry Sargent to Titania Child of Mine, of course. Child of the night, eyes so bright, queen of the fairies, heart stolen on first sight. The bottom of the forest, natural, not mechanical, a mischievous smile, a puck behind moonshone leaves, starlet on a branch, as a mullish hee-haw hearkens in the moonlight. The night is warm, the king's child smiles, and love's confusion envelops the middle of a season. The night is dark, and a child smiles into the eyes of its mother. Sorry about that, Barry. I mixed up the smiles word. That's it. And I'll give you this last one because why not? This is by Jenny Ivins, Titania Child of Mine. Your face to me is so sublime. I find myself inclined to rhyme. In thought I'll speak. No, not the time. Your nose a beak. Your smile is prime. I muse, you too, I hold you near, both content our love is clear, in mauve and peach. Once, one, now two, no letting go, I'm part of you.
What a ripper.
I think it was good. I think definitely explains it. That's it.